Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first, quite a windy day and overnight period along the southwest coast to the Alaska Peninsula. Peak wind gusts 68 miles an hour at Cape Newenham earlier today. Port Heiden 60 miles an hour out of the southeast. Nelson Lagoon there, north side of the western Alaska Peninsula, had a peak wind gust of 55 miles per hour. And skies cleared out this afternoon, and gusty east winds allowed the temperature to rise to 64 degrees in Bethel at about 2 p.m. this afternoon, which breaks the record high, the previous record for the date of 58 set in 1966. Satellite imagery showing the band of clouds here dissipating, especially over south central Alaska, with a shear in the flow here carrying moisture into the northern panhandle, and then another branch carrying it off to the northwest as moisture and southeast flow continues into the Alaska Peninsula. But you can see the entire band really dissipating, falling apart as upper level ridging builds in right over the top of it. High clouds into the northern panhandle. The light rain they had earlier or overnight last night and last evening ended, and still some rain over at Yakutat this afternoon to about Cordova, but this whole area really dissipating, and just some lighter amounts here back to the west and northwest with pretty good conditions, eastern interior, all the way up to part of the eastern north slope there was considerable low clouds and fog along the eastern stretch of the Arctic coast. That was improving today after the quarter-mile visibilities recorded at Deadhorse and Nuiqsut this morning in fog. A few snow flurries over at Barter Island, but that's ended. And we've got rain starting to taper off here over the Alaska Peninsula as well as Kodiak Island. But as this came through, Anchorage picked up about 1/4 of an inch of rain late last night, early this morning before it ended and broke out the sunshine here in Cook Inlet. Cordova about 1/3 of an inch. Yakutat 1/10 of an inch of rain. And then back to the southwest, Scammon Bay had nearly 1/2 inch during the 12-hour period ending at 3 o'clock this afternoon. St. Mary's about 1/4 of an inch, and out in the Bering Sea there, we had St. George, about 1/10 of an inch of precipitation, while Unalaska had 1/3 of an inch. Anyway, out to the west, much drier conditions, but still a lot of cloudiness out toward Adak and Shemya. On the chart, there's that rather tight pressure gradient here along the southwest coast and Alaska Peninsula on up toward St. Lawrence Island. Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta seeing gusts of 30 to 40 miles an hour. Same thing up here for the Seward Peninsula and the Chukchi Sea, where Kotzebue seeing gusts 30 to 35 miles an hour, as was Nome, or actually 35 to 40 miles an hour recorded at Kotzebue and Nome this afternoon, with some light precipitation, heaviest over toward St. Lawrence Island. Rain much of the day falling at Savunga and also at Gamble. Moving on to the forecast for tonight, that front completely dissipates, just leaving a few clouds behind, possibly here over the White Mountains as it lifts northward, but all the precipitation ends, skies clear, and pretty nice over the Panhandle. So some gusty northeast winds through the channeled areas, especially over toward the east side there, but temperatures staying above freezing for the most part, especially down south where temperatures this afternoon are in the mid-60s at Stewart and also at Klawock. Southeast interior looking nice, just an isolated shower. Actually, that moisture getting shoved back out over the Gulf of Alaska, and only a few showers at that. But southeast flow here will continue to pull moisture in the form of low clouds, fog, maybe some light rain and drizzle. Probable IFR conditions here for Kodiak Island, especially on the east side, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, but amounts won't be all that heavy. And this stationary front gradually and slowly weakening. Weak low here just south of the Unalaska area, will be tracking northward, but I'll keep periods of rain tonight, low clouds, fog. Stay rather breezy over the Pribilof Islands, occasional light rain and fog as well. Another weakening low out here will bring rain at times to the Alaska or Adak area as well as Zatka. And low clouds and fog again will be socking back in along the eastern central Arctic coast and to a lesser extent over the eastern North Slope. But all the snow shower activity is going to be off to the east on the other side of this ridge axis over the Northwest Territories of Canada. And forecast for tomorrow, Saturday, first day of the weekend, still stationary front out here being held back to the west and directed northwest by the strong upper level ridge over interior Alaska that's cutting off right over the central interior tomorrow afternoon. Southeast flow continues to pull that moisture up to the northwest. That's going to keep it damp, foggy at times, and marginal to IFR flying conditions, especially on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Range, and Kodiak Island. Isolated shower possible near or just south of Iliamna Bay, but that's not very significant. Stays dry along the southwest coast, still breezy, but you won't see the wind gusts you saw today and overnight last night, and also rather windy, but just a chance of rain now for St. Lawrence Island. Pribilof's right on the edge there. If that front gets far enough to the east, then you'll be out of the rain, definitely lighter winds, and rain, fog, and drizzle with that trough over the central Aleutians, and another one trying to swing into the far western areas, dissipating low clouds and fog, but some areas along the central eastern coast will persist even into the afternoon, but the north slope looks really good. Sunshine all the way down Copper River Basin from 40-mile country, sunny and breezy here for the southeast coast. Highs back into the 60s. Over many areas. It'll be definitely warmer with less clouds tomorrow over the northern southeast coast. And look for mid-60s, Susitna Valley, Big Lake, Willow, maybe Talkeetna as well. Tomorrow with sunshine and pretty sunny here over the southwest interior. Highs in the 60s once again, as well as Bristol Bay. Otherwise, still kind of breezy, as I mentioned, along the coast. And moving ahead to Sunday, that front continues to weaken, and still a pretty good gradient here, breezy but not as bad, not as windy. Looks like more clouds will spread up into the southwest interior here from the Alaska Peninsula with that southeast flow. So look for mostly cloudy skies on Saturday with an isolated shower or two, mainly over the hills and mountainous terrain. Rain at times, south side of the Alaska Peninsula. Look for some improvement in Kodiak Island, at least losing the precipitation, and a little bit better on the flying conditions. Still a lot of clouds around with that weak southeast flow now. Sunny skies, south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast, all of the interior, sunshine, and even the Panhandle once again. Less wind, those channeled winds will be diminishing. You see much slacker gradient now. This system staying well to the south, so nothing but sun on Sunday, as well as, well, the exception being up here along the central eastern Arctic coast and North Slope, and drying out over the western Aleutians with weak ridging. But this next storm coming up from the south, another round of rain and wind into the Alaska Peninsula, on up to the Pribilofs with increasing winds over Bristol Bay. Lows tonight, 15 to 25, northeast interior. Otherwise, gradually warmer as you head to the southwest, upper 40s to near 50 for the southwest coast, even St. Lawrence Island, lower 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, and 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, 60 to 65 here in Bristol Bay, on down to, possibly Pilot Point, Port Heiden, upper 50s Kodiak Island, upper 60s possible Susitna Valley, and back into the upper 50s to lower to maybe mid 60s there for the southeast coast. Highs struggling to reach freezing on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And then for Sunday morning, lows generally in the 20s here from the Copper River Basin all the way to the eastern Arctic coast, and a little below freezing the Kobuk Valley, the Koyukuk Valley, or the Kobuk Valley there, with much milder out toward the Seward Peninsula, mid 40s, upper 40s St. Lawrence Island, mid 40s Pribilofs, lower 50s again for the Alaska Peninsula, and 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Highs on Sunday afternoon. Not too bad again, maybe a little cooler, but still 60, 65 here over the southwest interior, near 60 in the Kuskokwim Valley, or the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Lower 60s there in the Kuskokwim Valley, Nikolai and McGrath, with temperatures lower 60s in the greater Fairbanks area for Sunday. And 55 to 60, for the entire stretch of the southeast coast with nothing but sun. North Gulf Coast, lower 60s and sunshine, and near 32 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, upper 30s to near 50 toward Point Lay, while the Aleutians will be mostly in the lower 50s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on into flying weather, we've got IFR here about the Bering Strait, south across St. Lawrence Island, southwest coast, Macoriac, and of course Perblof's on down to Nikolsky and Unalaska Dutch Harbor. IFR also over western central Aleutians, and marginal VFR a fair distance into the interior. Looks like southern Kuskokwim Valley and definitely Cook Inlet. Up the western Alaska Range, and there's probably due to lower stuff here over the Copper River Basin. Marginal VFR, White Mountains, and some IFR north slope in the Arctic coast. Panhandle, though, looking good. VFR, Dixon Entrance, all the way up to Yakutat, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay. And that good offshore flow continues, obviously, with still VFR sunshine for the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska now. This retreating back to the west, but IFR along the east side of Kodiak Island, southern Kenai Peninsula, western Alaska Range just dissipating slowly throughout the afternoon, and that'll linger over the southwest part of the state, Bristol Bay, up into the southwest mountains here. IFR, St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, and the Pribilofs on down to the western Alaska Peninsula. Arctic coast becoming VFR tomorrow afternoon, as well as the interior staying VFR. And then for Sunday morning, some IFR slips on down across the central eastern Arctic coast, and VFR continues in the interior. Marginal VFR almost in, well, it looks like up into possibly western Prince William Sound, IFR, southern Kodiak Island, and also some IFR here over the southern Kuskokwim Valley, maybe the southern Kuskokwim Mountains, and IFR a lot more widespread here. St. Lawrence Island, back down to Nunivak Island, and the Pribilofs, of course, into most of the Aleutians. Outlook for Sunday afternoon, IFR, central Arctic coast with marginal VFR, portions of the north slope, but you get into the VFR from the Brooks Range on down through the eastern interior, Susitna Valley. Good VFR day for Sunday afternoon, but IFR or marginal VFR coming back to the western slopes of the Alaska Range. Looks like some IFR here over the Kuskokwim Mountains, and then also IFR again, the Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, up to the Bering Strait, but north of there, Kotzebue Sound, looking pretty good. Southeast Chukchi Sea as well, up to even Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburn, all in the VFR zone. Panhandle, no change. And out west, marginal to another batch IFR just coming onto the chart. And for passes, Anatuvik, VFR, same forecast for Adigan. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR slowly becoming VFR throughout the afternoon. And rainy, marginal VFR probably becoming VFR a little faster, maybe the early afternoon. And windy, VFR the entire day. Saturday looks good for Isabel and Mentasta both, with Tanita wide open, VFR, sailing visibility is unlimited. Portage starting out marginal, some maybe some low stuff, fog, low clouds, but those will burn off to VFR. Chilkoot and White, VFR. And freezing levels, really tight gradient here through, well, from the northwest here through the central interior, on down across the Panhandle. Big upper level ridge setting up right over the central interior. South flow pulling 10 to 12,000 foot freezing levels here up toward the Seward Peninsula, and then 2,000 feet there up over the northeast to a little colder up to the eastern Arctic coast, and then about 4,000 feet over the west central Bering Sea. Icing, southeast flow continues moisture, but not quite as dense as it has been, but still chance of moisture along the Alaska Peninsula, but this way above 11,000 feet as far as the icing goes, with the moderate here, again, pretty high in altitude all the way up, maybe 4,000 feet over the central Aleutians, and that's just a chance of some light rime icing or mixed conditions there above about 4,000. Otherwise, remainder interior Alaska icing free. Jet stream, upper level ridge setting up, cutting off now over the central interior. Strong south to southeast winds, 120 knots on the west side of this ridge, kind of splits here on the north to south flow, 60 knots coming into the northern Panhandle right across Yakutat, the other branch on into western Canada, and upper level low out over the Bering Sea, pretty much staying put. And for the 9,000 foot winds, high pressure over the northeast interior, good southeast flow here, 30 to 55 knots along the coast and into the eastern Bering Sea, right up to St. Lawrence Island. Northwest 40, western Aleutians, 15 to 20 over the Panhandle, and light under the ridge. 3,000 feet, got a bend here in the central interior, 20 to 30 knot winds right through this area. Otherwise lighter to the north, lighter to the south, southeast, 45 to 50 along the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula. And about 15 to 25 for the Aleutians, Panhandle 15 to maybe 30 knots down toward Dixon Entrance. Turbulence, could be some light to isolated moderate chop there, but the big area, Alaska Peninsula, southwest coast on up to the Bering Strait, and some spotty stuff in the interior.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision-making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES 17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of change here, although the gap between this ice and then the one farther looks like it's narrowed a little bit. And for the next 5 days, both ice fields here are expected to drift northwest or west-northwest, anywhere from 10 to 20 nautical miles, with sea ice growth continuing along the main ice field back here to the northeast and north. Coastal water forecast, small craft advisories for northeast winds 20 to 25 knots here across all of the southeast coast, east 25 on the south coast, seas 7 to 8 feet, Clarence Strait north 20, Stevens Passage northeast 25, but gale force gusts of 40 knots in the forecast for tomorrow. Sustained northerlies for northern Lynn Canal 35 knots, northeast 20 on the north coast. Outlook for Sunday, these winds really come down here on the north side, 10 to 15, still at the northeast, 6 to 7 foot seas, 20 knot winds on the south coast, seas 6 feet, north 15, Stevens Passage. Not much change here for for Clarence Strait, north 15, Stevens Passage, not much change, just lose those 40 knot gusts, and 30 knots under gale force now for Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, northeast at 10. North 10 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, northeast 15 on the west side, 8 foot seas there, turn easterly for the Barren Islands and pick up to about 20 knots into Chemishak Bay, Cook Inlet, north to northeast 10 to 15. And for Sunday, Cook Inlet on down to Chemishak Bay, northeast winds at 10 with 2 to 3 foot seas, northeast 10 for the Barren Islands, as well as the North Gulf Coast, all northeast, and even Prince William Sound, northeast at 10 knots. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories tomorrow, east-northeast 25 to 30. Good gales here for the Alaska Peninsula, 40 knots, 40 to 45 knots out of the southeast, seas 11 to 20 feet, and east 40 knots for Bristol Bay with minimum gales here south of Sitkinak, southwest of Sitkinak. And then for Sunday, again, the next system coming up from the south, so east-southeast 40 to 45 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, still coming back up to 40 knots during the day for Bristol Bay, east 35, southwest of Sitkinak, 15 to 20 for Kodiak Island. And the eastern Aleutians got east winds for the most part, 15 to 20 knots. 7 to 13 foot seas, southwest 20 to 25, Adak and Atka, and west 25 knots for the far western zone. Then for Sunday, more uniform here. The western Aleutians, west 25, seas 10 feet, 20 to 30 knots out of the northwest for the central Aleutians. And it looks like winds increasing again with that system coming up from the south. We've got gales developing in the afternoon south of the eastern Aleutians with seas building 15 to 20 feet. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, good full gales, southeast 45 knots, 15-foot seas, east 35 for St. Lawrence Island, 25 knots for Norton Sound, southeast 45 for St. Matthew Island, only 10 knots for the Pribilofs. And then for Sunday, east 45 again, those coming up late in the day for the area south of Nunivak Island, otherwise 30-35 knots on up towards St. Lawrence Island and the northern Bering. Eastern Boulevard Sea Coast, east 25, southeast 25 for the central and west side, 30 knots from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And then for Sunday, dropping back to about 25 knots here with 6-foot seas from Wales on up to Cape Beaufort, 15 knots on the west side, 20 knots on the central coast. Small craft advisories continue for the eastern Beaufort Sea. And for tonight, low clouds and fog, probably sock back in again. Could see visibilities down to half mile again with the lighter winds, but more wind keeps it better out in the west. Stays windy here along the southwest coast, eastern Bering, but less rainfall. Clear for the Panhandle. And for tomorrow, sunshine over just about all of interior Alaska. Maybe some low stuff, especially early on for the eastern Arctic coast, maybe the North Slope, but dissipating throughout the day. Again, those gusty winds keeping it dry, temperatures in the 60s in some areas of the Panhandle, especially northern areas will see warmer temperatures. And again, mid to upper 60s to Sitna Valley, possible 60s again, Bristol Bay, near 60 or into lower 60s for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Very nice in the interior, and again, highs in the lower 60s possible in the central Tanana Valley. And another nice day all the way down to Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet. Look for more clouds to slip on up into the southwest interior with just a slight chance of rain. Next big storm coming up into the Alaska Peninsula. You can see during the day with a big increase in the winds back to gale force for the Alaska Peninsula, eventually Bristol Bay, along with increasing wind. And the southeast coast, another sunny day with this system staying well to the south. Lighter winds though, temperatures in the 50s to lower, maybe mid 60s.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.